It's going live on Facebook. I think recording is going. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to give it just a minute or two for people to hop on. We have an incredible number of people who have registered for this event, and we are excited to host all of you. For those who are unable to join the live session, if you're able to hear us or if you need to log off and log on, we are also broadcasting this live on Love is Respect's Facebook page. So you should be able to see that here in just a few minutes. This is incredible. We've got about 600 people on the line now. Thank you all so much for being here. We're just going to give it another minute. I'm Gretchen Shaw. I'm the Vice President of Programs with the National Domestic Violence Hotline. Okay. And to my panelists, can you still see the PowerPoint? Okay. Good deal. So we encourage you to use the chat function. It's wonderful to see everybody from Ohio and Alaska and Delaware, Evanston, Wisconsin, Oregon, Texas, Indiana, North Carolina. This is great. UK. All right. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and start so we don't have to sit here in awkward silence any longer. Again, my name is Gretchen Shaw. I'm the Vice President of Programs with the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and I work closely with the Love is Respect team, who also works closely with the wonderful Love is Respect National Youth Council members. So welcome today. We're going to take a minute. This session is being translated in both English and, ASL and Spanish. So we're going to turn this over to our Spanish interpreters to provide instruction for those who wish to join the Spanish channel. So Sandra, I will turn it over to you now.
Hi, everyone. This is actually Annabelle. I'll be giving you a set of instructions for those of you participating in English and in Spanish. Buenas, bienvenidas a todos. Yo voy a ofrecer una serie de instrucciones para los que desean participar en español. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to first do this announcement in Spanish, and then I'll have some instructions for those of you joining and participating in English. Así que si usted desea participar en español, si están participando en la reunión a través de una computadora, le pedimos que seleccionen el globo terráqueo que va a estar en la parte inferior de su pantalla, cerca al lado derecho. Al seleccionar ese globo, pueden ver una opción de interpretación de idiomas. Por favor, seleccionen español. Y también tienen la opción de silenciar el audio original. Esto es para escuchar a las intérpretes y no escuchar inglés al fondo. Si están participando a través de una tableta o un teléfono inteligente, pueden ahora mismo tocar su pantalla suavemente. Al hacer esto van a ver una opción de un menú de 3 puntos. Seleccionen ese menú y los llevará a la opción de interpretación de idiomas. Seleccionen español y luego también tienen la opción de silenciar el audio original. Al hacer todo esto, seleccionen finalizar o done para poder activar esta función. Si están usando una computadora Chromebook o llamando a través de la línea telefónica de Zoom, esta opción de interpretación no está disponible a través de esas dos maneras. Y si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, déjenos saber en el chat por si tienen alguna situación tecnológica y no pueden acceder a interpretación para ayudarles. So those of you who are joining in English, we're going to ask that you also select a language. This is because Zoom doesn't have a default language. So if you're participating in English, even if you don't require interpretation, we ask that you select the globe icon at the bottom right-hand side of your screen, select English, and that's all you have to do. And if you're joining us via a tablet or a smartphone, touch your screen lightly. Then you'll see a 3-dot menu at the bottom of your screen. Select that menu, select language interpretation once that pops up, and then select English. After that, you'll select done, and that activates the feature. And we do this so that we can ensure that you are able to hear an English interpretation when someone participates in Spanish, and you won't have to wonder what someone was saying. So I ask you all to please participate and in selecting your language right away, and we can turn it back over to our presenters. Thank you.
All the time. You would think I would have that figured out. Okay, so I'm going to move through just a few housekeeping items before we turn it over to today's presenters. I want to say a special thank you to Enterprise and LinguaFicient for providing interpretation today. Also, this session is being recorded. Recording will be sent to all registrants after this session is over, probably within a week. And we're also going to host it to the Love is Respect's YouTube channel. We encourage you to use the chat function, and we're thrilled to see that you all are already doing that. So please talk with one another and feel free to post questions either there or probably for this session. If we ask you to post them in the Q&A box. The chat box is moving so quickly, it may be easy for us to miss your question if it comes through. So if you do have a question, please again, post that in the Q&A box. We'll be addressing questions at the end of this session, so we'll be moving through those in the order in which they're received, and we'll get to as many as we're able to get to within the hour. You will receive a downloadable certificate of participation within the follow-up email once that's sent, so please look for that. Also, you'll be prompted to complete a short survey following the session. We do look at your feedback and we take that to heart. So please give us your opinions and share your thoughts. All right. So I am excited to introduce today's presenters. We have 3 members of Love is Respect's National Youth Council: Zane Landon, Kate Nekaniki, and then Rochelle Chikuma, and then also our Love is Respect director, Angela Lee, who will be facilitating today's session. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and then Angela, I will turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. First and foremost, we would like to thank the Family Violence Prevention Service Program for making this webinar possible. And we would like to thank all of you for joining us as well. Today, we will be directly talking to our youth to hear about real issues affecting teens and young adults as it relates to online harassment. Before I get started, my name is Angela Lee. I am currently serving as the Love is Respect director. My pronouns are she, her, and they. And I've been with the National Domestic Violence Hotline for 12 years. Love is Respect is a project of the National Domestic Violence Hotline, and we serve ages 13 to 26, as well as older adults. But our targeted audience is 13 to 26. So with that being said, without further ado, I would like to give an opportunity for these amazing, just 3 of our amazing youth council members to take an opportunity to introduce themselves as well. So let's start with Zane.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Zane Landon. My pronouns are he, him, his. This is my first year on the National Youth Council for Lovers Respect. I describe myself as a mental health advocate, as well as advocating just for diverse, groups and organizations and people that they can feel inclusive and, have that equity. And when we talk about, online harassment, we need to include every diverse voice to get the true scope of these issues. And aside from that, I'm a recent graduate from Cal Poly Pomona. I just moved. I'm in DC from California, and I'm currently working at National Geographic Society as an internal communication specialist. And my pronouns are he and him.
Next.
I can go. Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Necknecky. My pronouns are she and her, and I have been with the Youth Council for 3 years. So I'm very excited to be joining the webinar today and look forward to kind of sharing thoughts on this issue that I feel like all young people have experienced. So I'm grateful to be here with you all today. And I'm also calling in from Chicago.
Last but certainly not least, we can't hear you. I'm not sure. We get some technical support for Rochelle. No, still can't hear you. Maybe check your speakers. How unusual is that? There you go.
Oh, okay. I have no idea what was wrong. I apologize, guys, but my name is Rochelle Chikuma. My pronouns are she, her. I am 25. I am from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, but I currently live in Seattle, Washington. And I am passionate about empowering youth with the resources and education that I've never had. So I've been a part of the Youth Council for 3 years now, and I am so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you too. And it's funny, we're talking about tech stuff and online harassment, and then you couldn't get your speaker on, but that's all right. It's a real live conversation. Okay, so thank you all. And again, I really love sharing space with everyone, especially the youth council members, because they make me better. Let me just say that. I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. So last spring, Love is Respect and the hotline conducted a survey to learn more about online harassment, abuse in romantic relationships, and including what that looks like, how prevalent is it, and what impact is it actually having on survivors. And found that online harassment and abuse is in fact a widespread issue. Like 78% reported that they were receiving online harassment via text message and other messaging apps. 70% said on social media. So, and I'm gonna start with you, Kate. What suggestions do you have for setting boundaries with digital communication?
Yeah, what a good question. I think the biggest thing for me is being able to talk to people, especially like friends or partners, about how you prefer to communicate. So, understanding, do you prefer to text, or do you want a video chat, or would you prefer to FaceTime? Talking to people if you want to talk over Snapchat, or kind of what that looks like. So being able to talk to people about, what kind of communication mediums are comfortable to you, I think is really important. And also understanding that important conversations are really best to have in person. So if you want to have a serious conversation with someone, it's really important that you're able to see, facial expressions, and you're able to hear tone, because a lot of times those things can get lost in just text messages. So I think that's really important as well. And just communicating with like your partner or friends about, what works for you and what doesn't. So being able to communicate and say, hey, after school, I really need to focus on homework, so I can't talk right now. Or if you go on a vacation with your family, saying, I might not have access to the internet, or I want to focus on, spending time with my family, and being able to communicate, when you're able to talk and when you're not able to talk, and being able to respect those boundaries that your partner sets, and making sure that your boundaries are being respected too. But being able to share about, what you prefer to communicate through, and when works for you to talk or not to talk, I think is really important. And being able to just set those boundaries and communicate on what works for you, and make sure that you're able to check in if things aren't working, or if you want to switch things up. Being able to talk with your friends and your partner about that is really important for healthy communication.
Right. Love that. So what I'm hearing from you is it's about boundaries, and you know me, I say boundaries are yours to build, right? But also communication. I know the past few years, everybody's just starting to come out, but the pandemic kind of like pushed everyone to be more digital and virtual. So I definitely understand that and appreciate your perspective on that. So Rochelle, what suggestions do you have?
Okay, this is really going to be piggybacking off of what Kate said. I loved her answer. And I would say that personally, my friends and I like to have what we call phone breaks. So if I am texting someone, having a conversation with someone, calling or FaceTiming, and one of us feels like we've been staring at a screen for too long, we will tell each other, hey, I'm going to take a phone break. So I'm going to be off my phone for maybe an hour or 2, 3 hours, or I'm going to read, take a nap, or simply hang out with people in person. And I think that the same thing can be applied to a romantic partner. So telling your partner, hey, I'm going out with my friends tonight. I will text you when I get home, or give you a call when I get home, or I'm going to cook dinner. I can call you when I'm done eating. And that way, I think that helps set the expectation that you don't need to be texting or messaging someone 24/7, because that's a lot to expect from someone, and that's not plausible. And I think, like Kate said, the best conversations are the ones that you have in person, because you can read someone's tone of voice and get a feel for their body language. And those are my tips for digital boundaries: having phone breaks.
Hey, and I see some people in the chat was like, yeah, that's a great idea, phone breaks. Okay, Zane?
I appreciate what's been said, and I agree with all of it, especially having phone breaks. But I think setting boundaries and keeping those goals in your head is very difficult. So sometimes you just have to move your phone or hide it or do something where you're not around it, because it's very easy to be consumed and kind of somewhat like the addiction of technology. But I believe it's really important to like sit with yourself and determine what you need, because sometimes we want to set a boundary, but like, what do I actually need? Is this boundary going to fully support me and my longevity? So sometimes don't think about others and think about your self-love. Think about your own well-being and safety. Doesn't mean you can treat others however you want, but really respect yourself. And sometimes I even think you need to write it down. Write down how you should be treated and that respect you deserve. And I don't think there's anything wrong with you telling someone how you made them feel. And if they're not respecting that, you may need to distance yourself from them. And it's a very hard process, because maybe you somewhat enjoy them, but you have to think about yourself sometimes. And I do not think there's a shame in blocking someone. Actually blocking someone on social media if someone is harassing you or they're even just content that they're putting out that you believe is toxic or not supporting you, I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. Again, lastly, it's a hard decision, but to be honest, how people react to you setting a boundary that supports yourself says more about them than it does you. So I would try not to worry about them.
Wow. Yeah. And y'all heard it from the young people. And you know, sometimes I've even heard, and we've heard on the lines, kind of like to piggyback off what Zane said, like some young people don't feel comfortable setting boundaries because in fear of the relationship might end. The key elements to a relationship are so very important, right? And boundaries is one of them. Communication, like Kate talked about, is one of them. So I also think, with that being said, and how online harassment happens so much, I want to ask you all, and I'm going to start with you, Rochelle, what do you think prevents teens and young adults from even reporting online harassment, or do they even know what that is, how to identify?
I think that there's definitely still stigma around reporting harassment, and that, you know, that speaking about online harassment or even speaking about online harassment can be somewhat taboo still. But I think oftentimes harassment may come from somebody who we know or is in the same community as us. And so when we report somebody, it can often lead to guilt because, like, that's someone we know and we care about this person. We don't want to get them into trouble. And if that is somebody who is within our community and perhaps our friends and our family also know this person, they could get upset with you if you report them. And I think that is where a lot of stigma can come from. But if that is something that you are experiencing or going through, or something that you know, there's the potential that you can experience it in the future, I think it's something that everyone should keep in mind, is that your safety and your peace of mind is far more important than somebody else's comfort, especially if you've had conversations with somebody with the person who is online harassing you. If you've had conversations with them about, this behavior you're displaying is making me uncomfortable and I don't like it, but for some reason they persist, then I think that it is within reason to report and let somebody else know about the harassment, despite the fact that it could get them into trouble, or you might feel guilty about it. Because, like I said, I think that your safety and your peace of mind is far more important than someone else's comfort.
Love that. Your peace of mind is far more important. And you know, our theme is Be About It this February for Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And we're focusing on the 3 E's: engagement, empowerment, right, and education. So that was such an empowering statement. Kate, do you want to speak on that?
Yeah, I definitely second everything that was said, but I feel like, unfortunately, because it is so common, I think a lot of young people don't even realize that it's harassment, or there's a lack of awareness of what it could look like. So I think that could be one of the reasons that teens aren't reporting it. I think, again, just like feeling shame or embarrassment, or if they feel like they did something wrong, not wanting to get in trouble. And I also think there's a lot of teens that don't have a trusted adult in their life, or don't know who to turn to if they have questions or for support. So I think it's great that if we're able to kind of show ourselves as trusted adults, whether that's a parent, guardian, teacher, anything like that, being able to talk about harassment so that teens are aware of what it looks like, and also knowing who they can turn to if they need help.
I love that. And Love is Respect is here to support, and so many other organizations. Let me just say that. I'm pretty sure a lot of them are represented. But that's a really good point. That shame, that fear, and not knowing who to turn to, right? Zane?
Yeah, I think that it is already incredibly difficult for adults to come forward about online harassment or any form of abuse. So imagine being a teenager or a young adult that may not even fully grasp what's going on. And teenagers are still developing, they're still understanding their identity, their emotions. And so it's going to be they're going to be even more vulnerable and they may experience even more shame. So the culture we live in and the language we use, they're going to experience even more. And again, I think what Kate said, online harassment is so common that I actually think teens believe it is a consequence of being online, that sometimes they're told, if you put yourself out online, there's a consequence, you can get harassed, which, yes, I mean, putting yourself out there, yes, that can happen, but it's not any justification. It's not an excuse and it's not their fault. I feel like that's victim blaming that they put themselves out there. There's nothing wrong with putting yourself out there. And so I think a lot of times teens are not even going to understand that they were harassed. And so I think we actually need to have a real structured change where we actually educate teens and young adults on what exactly online harassment is. Because even like hurtful language, that's harassment. And some people won't even think that. They'll think that that is just normal that happens online. And so I really want, teens and young adults to be this structured education and this real change in, how we educate teens and young adults so they can understand what the signs are, what it happens, and what exactly the tools are and the resources, so that they can, support themselves and address it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. And just referencing back to that survey that I mentioned, some of the results also demonstrated that many survivors, they aren't even seeking support after their experiences. And some of it probably is shame-based, fear-based, just like y'all talked about. 33% of the respondents stated that they did not seek help or support any kind. And of those who did seek support, I think like 50% said they talked to their friends, their family, or a trusted adult. We also learned from the survey that there's a stigma, and I think Rochelle referenced that term, associated with experiencing online harassment that prevents young people from, reporting it. How can we, as organizations, as older adults, continue to break down the stigma of online harassment, including young people? And I'll start with you, Zane.
As I mentioned, in my previous answer, I think one of the most important tools to drive awareness and change is really going to be education, to get that professional experience coming from an expert. But I also think that as I identify as a authentic storyteller, I really do think storytelling is really key in changing attitudes and perceptions. And I think that, we need more young, authentic, diverse stories in the media. It's time we've had that. And we need to see more teens and young adults in books, movies, and television shows that really can depict what harassment and abuse is and not normalize it. Because for the longest time, television shows have normalized and romanticized relationships and behaviors that were honestly really toxic. And it's sad because people fall for that and they see that as normal. And if children are seeing that, they're going to think that's normal behavior and normal relationship, and that's not a healthy thing. And so because of this, more people, I also think that once you have more of that storytelling aspect, it doesn't feel as taboo. And now you're going to have more people actually come forward and speak and share their stories and create more spaces and awareness. So I think it really does start with media, storytelling, telling our own stories, if you feel comfortable, because not everyone wants to do that. And not everyone is going to gain anything from that. And so I think that once we share more stories of the severity of online harassment, we will slowly, hope maybe one day rapidly, create a culture of empathy, understanding, and overall less shame in coming forward in any form of abuse or harassment.
Speak, Zane, speak. I hear the passion, and that's so true. I have nothing to say behind that. That is so true. Rochelle?
I think Zane gave such a good answer. So
I know. I know.
But I would say that in addition to making sure that people from different backgrounds and experiences are represented in media. I think that also just continuing to create spaces where people can have open conversations, like this platform, this webinar, I think is a wonderful example of that. And continuing to promote educational resources, and by teaching people what actually constitutes as online harassment, because like we've been saying, that lots of people sometimes they don't know what online harassment is. And so I genuinely believe that most people don't want to be harassers. Sometimes people just like don't know what it looks like, especially because the digital world is changing so fast. And
Yes.
so what constitutes harassment is also always changing as we evolve, and we are constantly improving the etiquette of how we interact with each other online. And so I think that, yeah, by continuing to create spaces where we can have open conversations and continually letting people know what online harassment looks like as it continues to develop and as the internet is constantly evolving.
Yeah, because it's constantly evolving. It's hard for me to keep up. My nieces help me. Kate, you want to share a little something on that before we move to the next question?
Yeah, I think talking about it here is a great start. And I know a lot of organizations are doing what they can to kind of raise awareness, which is great. But continuing the conversation after this. So whether it's talking with friends, families, students, kids, coworkers, right? Just like share a
Yeah.
few things that you learned today, or you learned from an article that you read or a resource, I think is really great to raise awareness. And like we've talked about, what does it look like? And it could be, with Zane mentioned earlier, we see so many negative depictions of relationships in media. So use that as an example. If you're watching something with your friends, mention it of like, hey, what just happened, in that TV show, like wasn't okay. And like, what should they have done instead? And so it doesn't always have to be a personal example, because I know that can be really vulnerable and scary to share. So talk about something in the media instead, just to raise awareness about it. Again, if we can share more about what it looks like and what we can do, whether it's reporting or blocking people, I think being able to raise that awareness is really the key.
Absolutely, absolutely. Look, from y'all answers, I'm going to shift it a little bit. I'm going to go here. Okay. If you had an opportunity to just launch a campaign to break this stigma, what would that look like? And I'm going to start with you, Rochelle.
Okay, such a big question. Well, I think my idea would be having a program that probably starts as early as elementary school and continuing throughout K through 12, um, about just letting people know what exactly online harassment is. And um, because like I said, it's constantly evolving. And so if we keep it a consistent program that can keep up with this ever-changing digital landscape, that would be great. And I also think that letting people know that there is such thing as a digital footprint, I feel like that can also be very easy to forget when we're just like posting things online or we're sending out pictures of ourselves. Like I think that it can be easy to forget that, like, even if you think you're posting something anonymously or doing something like in private, things can always be traced back to you. And so I think that if I were to come up with some sort of campaign, it would definitely be something that touches on the ever changing digital landscape and how what constitutes online harassment is always changing, but also having the reminder that there is a digital footprint, and the things that you post online always follow you. So be careful about.
That's right. That's amazing. Because the internet is forever. So we're not telling people what to do, but just know. And that even, Rochelle, can be in the form of just sending a picture via text. We don't know what's going to happen next. So it's about, and some of the key elements to a relationship is, a healthy relationship is trust and honesty. So maybe taking time to get to know people before you even move in those spaces. Great points, Rochelle. How about you, Kate?
Yeah, I think as we've touched on before, education is key. I loved what someone said in the chat, that spreading awareness is available to all, right? So it's something we can all do, which is awesome. So I think being able to teach people how to recognize it, but also, like was kind of mentioned before, making sure we're talking about how to make sure we're speaking kindly to people, and knowing what etiquette is, and making sure that we're uplifting people and not tearing people down, I think is really important too, to kind of break that cycle. I also think it's great to support adults and parents, guardians, teachers, coaches, whoever it might be, on how they can kind of see what's going on or see what the warning signs are, to be able to intervene, and understanding how they can support a young person too, because we can't just expect adults to know how to do that. So being able to provide that curriculum, I think would be really great. I think also talking back to kind of media and shows, I would love to see more warnings and resources. So if a show is depicting online harassment, or a movie or whatever it is, having a warning slide before the scene, having, support resources show up on a slide after the scene, I think is huge. So if I were to create a campaign of education and awareness, I think kind of what I touched on before, of just knowing how to support young people and also adults, but also having the media be held accountable for, if they're going to show scenes like this, being able to show support resources as well, I think would be really great.
Wow. These are our future advocates right here, y'all. Yes, education is the key, but not just for our young people. What I'm hearing you saying, Kate, for older adults too, right? Knowing the warning signs and what to recognize. And last, Zane, can you take a couple of minutes to tell us what you would do?
Okay, here's what I would do. I would create a powerful team of influential speakers. And again, when we talk about making sure that knowledge and information is accessible, meaning that we need to tell the diverse stories. So it would be a group of underrepresented speakers, because all of them have different dynamics, intersectionality, that coming forward, online harassment is going to look very different for all of them. So we need to know about those different dynamics to really address the issue holistically. And these powerful speakers would tour the United States and hopefully go international to different countries, where they're speaking to middle schools, high schools, and universities, where they're talking about these issues. And it would start with how to have healthy communication, how to set boundaries, what kindness looks like, taking care of yourself, online harassment and abuse. So people know exactly what these things are and the resources and opportunities that are available. And they're seeing speakers openly share their story as well, because they're going to share their story. It's not just sharing the information, it's sharing that piece of them, that what they've gone through and what helped them. And I think that's where people are going to take from the message, is the inspiration, the people behind the story. That's what I would do.
I think that's amazing. Let me know when you do it. I'll be there. You brought up some good points as well, and it all boils down to the stigma, right? And it's associated with shame. And also it's an unfortunate reality for, populations on the margin. You touched on it, right? Let's go ahead and talk about it based on many factors such as age, gender identity, sex, race, right? So we must understand what our youth are facing, and even older adults, which it was proven in the online harassment and abuse survey we conducted last spring, and referenced by the White House Gender Policy Council. So, it's very important that we're having this conversation. I've always thought that storytelling is such a powerful tool. It's such a powerful tool because you can connect the person with the story. So thank y'all. This has been so far so good. I mean, I'm loving the ideas. I may have to jot some of them down for myself in Love is Respect. But let's shift our conversation some more. A little, so there's a lot of digital platforms and other digital platforms like dating apps, right? So I would love to hear from you all. What are some red flags, or like the term y'all use, toxic behavior you or some of your friends or peers have experienced with dating online? And let's start with Zane.
What I will say, and I have, experienced ghosting and people just being unkind online, which I think many people have, experienced. I think some of the red flags for online dating is making sure that, for one, you have to understand exactly what you want, because sometimes people are on there, they're not looking for a meaningful relationship. And if that's not what they're looking for, that's fine. But I think you have to be cognizant of the different platforms, because there are good platforms. And, one of them that I really appreciate, is Bumble. And they're not just a dating platform. I think that they are a movement of creating this inclusive place where you can find friends, community, meaningful relationships to have people with. So I think finding a dating app that really encompasses all different types of relationships and an inclusive one where you can actually, feel like you have this worth in showing who you are. And sometimes, these dating apps and the red flags I see, people not being honest on them, people looking for something that you're not looking for, or just not respecting your boundaries. Because early on in your relationship, and if you're already inserting boundaries and you're already getting feedback from people, like negative feedback, that's already telling you a serious red flag. And that is something that you really should be mindful of. So that is some of the red flags I've experienced with dating apps. And sometimes you can be in dangerous situations. So of course, if you're going to be on a dating app, you never met this person, you're going to meet someone, meet them in a public place, meet them with friends, or whatever it is, just so you ensure that you have that safety.
Absolutely. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your experience. And you're right, Bumble is changing so much. They actually partner with us. They're not just a dating app, they're a movement. And I'm really excited that you mentioned that. Who wants to go next?
I can jump in. Yeah, I love that Bumble is really advocating for having a safe space without harassment, because dating apps can be really great because you can meet friends or partners, but it can also be kind of scary meeting new people. And so it's great that apps like Bumble have features to block or report people. I think the biggest thing is to trust your gut. So if someone makes you feel unsafe or uncomfortable, you can unmatch with them or report them, because you want, someone that you're getting to know to be fun and safe and comfortable. And so trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. And so you don't have to continue, talking to that person. I think for me, what I did when I was on dating apps is that apps like Bumble have a video chat feature. So I would always video chat with people before meeting up with them in person, because it's a great way to, one, make sure they are who they say they are, but also just kind of get a vibe check to see if there's someone that you're interested in getting to know more. And if someone, didn't want to get on a video call with me or was resistant to that idea, that would be a red flag for me. Because I think that's a great way to get to know someone before meeting up. Like Zane said, if you do, make sure it's in a public place, let people know where you're going, make sure your phone is charged. You can even send your friends like a screenshot of their profile so they know who you're meeting up with. You can share your location. So there's lots of things you can do to make sure that you're being safe if you do choose to meet up with someone. But I think that the biggest thing is to just trust your gut and know that apps like Bumble have safety tips. They have things in place to make sure that you can have a good, safe experience. So that's what I would recommend when using dating apps.
That's amazing. Safety first. And if y'all want any information on, because there's different types of boundaries. There's physical boundaries, there's digital boundaries, there's emotional boundaries. So we definitely have a lot of information on our website on that. Rochelle, I want to give you an opportunity to answer this question as well.
Sure. I feel like Zane and Kate really said it all, but yeah, I think the point of these apps is to have fun and hopefully meet meaningful people along the way. So if you don't feel like you are having fun, or like Kate said, if you're having an interaction with someone and it just feels ever it feels too good to be true, then it probably is. I think one thing that's really common with dating apps is like this advent of like love bombing or things that can feel somewhat close to it. So, which and love bombing, I believe, is characterized as the excessive attention and admiration and affection with the goal of making you feel dependent or obligated to the other person who you're speaking to. And so, if things feel like they are too good to be true and moving too fast for somebody who you just met through a dating app, then they probably are too good to be true and they probably are moving too fast. So I think that that is definitely a red flag to be cautious of when it comes to online dating. Yeah, and in addition to that, meeting up with people in a public place the first time you meet with them, I feel like it's common for sometimes people to be like, oh, come over. But I think that that's a boundary that like everybody should have. If you're meeting with someone up front, if you're meeting up with someone from an app, definitely public place first. FaceTime them to get a vibe check. And if those are things that they don't feel comfortable enough doing with you, then that's probably not somebody that you should talk to anyway. So those are kind of my tips.
I love it. I love it. So everyone's pretty much talked about safety, talked about boundaries, talked about meeting in a public place, talked about Bumble and the video option, or even like Rochelle said, FaceTime. Zane really talked about honed into safety as well. So I think that here's the deal, whether it's digital or in real life, some of these tips, like trusting your gut, like sharing your location with someone to make sure that you're safe, or where you're meeting up in a public place, these are all tips that we encourage you to use, period, right? So we've talked a lot about the digital platforms. Let's move into a little positive. Give us some positive ways. Like, so how do you see digital platforms being used positively to influence and encourage healthy relationships?
I can jump in. I think one way that I've seen like social media being used positively is that like on Instagram or TikTok, I've seen like relationship counselors post videos of like, here are 10 green flags of relationships, or sharing red flags, but being able to hear from, you know, relationship counselors or other knowledgeable people about what to look for in a healthy relationship, or what to watch out for in a very like fun, short, easy, digestible format, I think has been really awesome. I also think, to what Zane has mentioned, social media allows for a lot of diverse voices to be heard. So being able to hear the experiences of lots of different people, whether they're good or bad, I think is a really positive thing. So we're not just hearing what's on our TV, but we can really hear from any creator. So I think that's been really awesome. Or even just, you know, seeing fun, relatable relationship content. Like I follow a few people on Instagram that just kind of make fun of like things that you experience in relationships, and being able to normalize those things, I think is really great too. So those are a few of the positive things I've seen in regards to relationships on social media.
That's awesome. That's awesome, because I agree with you, Kate. Social media can be very fun. It can be very exciting, and it can be used as a tool to lift up positive, healthy relationships. So I see Zane's right there. I'm gonna go ahead and see. I think, what do you want to say about that?
Well, I won't mention, specific, organizations or influencers, but I think that I just want to share that we also have to be careful with who we follow, because sometimes some people are not sharing accurate information, and we have to be like true journalists, and we really have to make sure that we're tuning to people that are sharing, things that are accurate. And I also love that people are just really vulnerable on social media, to the point where people are talking about mental health and like showing themselves taking their medication. I love that so much. I think that's such a great thing to see. But that there are people who are very open about past experiences they've had in relationships. I think that's so powerful, because people can really hear and resonate with that story, because maybe they've experienced something like that and they really felt like they were alone. And maybe in those situations, you are alone because you don't have anyone you can turn to. But look at that. There's someone out there being vulnerable and sharing something that you maybe closely experience. So I think
Yes.
even though it may not feel positive, because it's like they're telling like maybe a horrific story, it's going to create a positive community though of support, and people not feeling like they're in isolation when they experience it themselves. That's what I would say.
Wow, Zane, well said, well said. And it goes back to, and I say this, find your people, right? Be careful. Rochelle?
Yes. I think really in addition to what Zane said, one positive of social media is people's ability, the fact that people are willing to be vulnerable on it. So we get to hear the stories of so many different people talking about harassment they faced or abuse that they faced. And although those stories aren't necessarily positive, they can create a positive community, because people who are survivors or victims of abuse and harassment, those people who although they may not come forward, they get to feel less isolated or alone in the experiences that they've had, because they've got to hear the stories of somebody else who was willing to get on a digital platform and share them. And there are so many powerful stories that we would have never have known if it wasn't for social media and digital spaces. So I am really grateful to live in a time where I get to hear so many other people's stories who have made me a stronger and better person.
That's deep. I don't think I need to say anything about that. What's shared from the heart reaches the heart. Hear y'all. And I hope our audience is hearing. These are young people sharing their experiences and their thoughts and their perspective and their wants and their needs. We're going to move into our last question, because we definitely want to hold a few minutes for any questions from the audience. So y'all, we've touched on it. Each one of y'all in your answers have touched on it. I'm just going to call it, pop culture can have a heavy, heavy influence on how young people and any of us develop opinions about romantic relationships. How do you feel pop culture has influenced your understanding of love, of dating, or intimate relationships? And let's try to keep it, whoever want to go. Not going to even choose anyone.
I can jump in. I think I've realized that a lot of TV shows and movies show really dramatic relationships because that's what people find interesting to watch. The problem, though, is that it really normalizes unhealthy and abusive behaviors. And so we don't see a lot of examples of what a healthy relationship should look like. And so I would love to see a show about like healthy relationships or anything like that. And see those examples of what healthy relationships should look like. Because unfortunately, I think a lot of media has really normalized unhealthy behaviors. So people don't even realize that those behaviors are things that we shouldn't be committing or experiencing. But again, dramatic TV shows want drama to keep people watching, but being able to understand that TV shows and movies aren't real and that our real life should have healthy relationships, I think is really important.
I agree. Like I said earlier, it's just romanticizing unhealthy relationships. And our young people are watching this, right? So yeah, misinformed information. I think somebody used that term earlier. Well said, well said. Who wants to go next? Rochelle?
Yeah, so I think on the other end of the spectrum, I also feel like it's so easy to log into social media and see our friends or influencers or celebrities posting about a relationship that looks very perfect and full of love and very happy. But like everybody says, social media is truly just a highlight reel, and the people who are in the happiest and healthiest relationships aren't necessarily the ones who are posting about their relationship all the time. So I think it's always good to keep in mind that you genuinely have no idea what's happening behind closed doors. And from my own experience, the people who are in the happiest and healthiest relationships don't find the need to post about them online all the time because they don't need the external validation.
They don't need the external validation. Come on with it. I love that. Zane,
All
how
right,
you
so
gonna come behind Kate and Rochelle with this one?
I don't know. But I agree with what both of you are saying. And as I said, I think my previous answer that, there are television shows that romanticizes unhealthy behavior. And what I find sad is you'll have relationships that are great. And people will say, well, they're boring. Yeah, because we expect the drama, and actually a healthy relationship doesn't have to have trauma. And sometimes drama, arguments, that is completely normal. And even seeing just couples argue in TV shows in a healthy way, I would love to see. And kind of like what Rochelle was saying, I used to be a fan of like YouTube and TikTok couples. At this point, I don't like them anymore because I see that they're really showing their relationship in a very shiny light where it's always perfect and they're always like encouraging each other. And it's like there are times where the romantic times are just gonna cool off. And I think those are normal times. I think that those are great times. And you don't always have to have action, you don't always have to be talking. Sometimes you could just exist in silence, whatever works for you. But I want to see more like variety in relationships, because especially with different cultures, because they're all very different and how different their different attitudes and quirks and all these different things. So that is what I want to see more.
Absolutely, absolutely. You brought us on in. I agree with what everyone has said. I think that I know that this webinar was intended, y'all, to highlight the importance of clearly defining, talking about, and acknowledging online harassment. Not just acknowledging it, but acknowledging that it has the same harmful impact as other abuse types. Zane touched on it, the mental health issues, the low self-esteem that can come from this, the shame that can come from that. That's emotional abuse, right? But the way that it impacts our teens and young adults, there is a need to change the narrative that online harassment and digital abuse is less dangerous or harmful, because abuse is abuse. This is, and I talked about this earlier, but it's also unfortunate reality and different factors that come into play with different groups based on their age and their gender and their identity, sexual identity, race, backgrounds. But we must understand that this is what our youth, you just heard it from them, are facing, which was proven again in the survey that we did. So if you or someone you know is experiencing dating abuse, or just have a question about if their relationship is healthy, should I be getting this many text messages? Should I send a picture online with the dating app? Please know you can reach out to Love is Respect. Our advocates are here and they're trained and loving, empathetic, knowledgeable. They're here 24/7 and totally confidential for support. All you have to do is go to loveisrespect.org and you'll see all the information as far as chat, text, or phones. So I know that we went a little in, but is there any questions that we perhaps could answer? Gretchen, did you notice any that?
Oh, yes. So first of all, I want to say thank you so much to all of you, Angela, Kate, Rochelle, and Zane. I don't know if you've been watching the chat, but this has been such an incredible conversation. And you all, each and every one of you are amazing. So for those who wish to stay on for a little bit longer, we have about 14 or 15 questions. Because we probably can't get to each of them, I'm going to try to summarize the core meaning of a few that seem similar. So one of the first questions is, how do you go about, what do you do if someone's not respecting your boundaries? Do you have advice about how to stop a partner or a friend from crossing those boundaries?
Yeah, that's really a great question. I'm gonna come from love is respect side, but boundaries are yours to build, right? I don't think if someone's crossing your boundaries, I don't think we have the opportunity or a way to stop that, but you can set stricter boundaries to prohibit that. Like if they're constantly calling you, constantly texting you, perhaps blocking. If they're reaching out to you on dating apps and it's causing problems and it's disrespectful, maybe reach out to the dating app. I know Bumble is one of the ones that has no tolerance for that, right? Depending on different circumstances. But the main thing is when you're going through something that's got you kind of questionable, reach out to the experts, reach out to us. We'll talk about what's going on. We'll talk about what you've tried. It may even lead to a restraining order, a protection order. There's so many different opportunities to protect yourself out there that will fit your specific needs. That's what I would say, generally speaking.
Excellent. Okay, so what advice would you have to someone who is fearful of any consequence, or what they were saying is blowback, when it comes to setting boundaries, like inside and outside of like familial relationships, for example? What would you suggest to someone who is afraid of doing so?
I can share about this because I will share. I'm just gonna give not the whole story. My mom passed away 2 years ago. And it was a difficult time, of course. And this isn't about harassment, but when we would visit certain family members, they would remind us that my mom was gone. They would say, "Oh, you're gonna go through your whole life without your mom, and it's just so sad." I know that. I clearly know that. I don't need to hear that from someone. So what I did was I just didn't go over anymore. I didn't say why. I didn't go over for several months because I was becoming angry when I would go there, and I would be having memories of being angry there, so I wouldn't want to go there at all. So I think that's such a difficult thing, though, and it really is based on your family, because every family will be different. And I understand, like, you could hurt some feelings, and sometimes communication won't work. I really didn't want to tell them, and it really helped. I don't think they got offended. Maybe they did, but I took care of myself, and that is the most important part. But I get how difficult it is, because you don't know how someone's going to react and how family is going to treat you. And so when it comes to that, I would, set those boundaries, but also even try it first, communicate at first if what you're experiencing, because I didn't communicate, but it helped me. And sometimes you don't need that communication for certain situations like that, because I was scared of how people would react. But maybe it would have helped, though. Maybe it would have been a better situation if I addressed it. So that's something that I would say is, of course, having that strong communication and just thinking about yourself. I don't know if that's the best advice, but that's what I would do.
It's great advice because you just said you ended. That's what I would do. And I think that's very powerful. And you shared a little of the story. Sometimes, like, we can't sit here and say, I think you should do this. You should do this. That's what we hear from young people that a lot of parents do. We want to ask them what they need, right? We want to ask them, how can I support you? So, and then we figure out, of course, we're going to highlight or identify if there's any danger that could be involved, but ultimately just providing the support to help them make the best decision that's healthy for them. So we got a few more minutes. Want some more, couple of more questions? Yeah, if
I
there
think you're
are
muted.
mental health problems, I've seen someone say that. I think that that's a larger conversation. I don't know if the mental health problems is for the person who is experiencing the unhealthy relationship or the abuse, or if it's the person choosing to cause harm. But that's definitely goes back to creating a safety plan specific for you, right? Reaching out to our advocates to really look at that. But there's a lot of different protections that could be out there. But it's important to know, you know, like Kate said earlier, trust your gut. If you feel like, even though mental health is a disease, we recognize that, but if you feel like that could put you in more danger, you know, we have over 7,000 resources. Let's say we can help you, or we can get you to a resource that could help you, like a counseling or suicide prevention, or, you know, if you're the LGBTQ plus community trevor project, there's different organizations that are probably, like I said, represented right here on this platform that are here to assist and help.
Wonderful. So this I'm gonna kind of group together. Someone's asking what advice you would give to someone who is being harassed or abused by one specific person, but they're part of a larger group. So they're fearful of speaking out because of what they may lose relationships. Let's say they break it off with a person who is causing them harm. What advice would you give?
Are they wanting that from the youth council members or from experts?
I would like to hear from youth. As a parent, I've seen this happen to my own daughter. So I'm curious to know what your thoughts were, if you've experienced anything like that, or what advice you would give to a young person who may just be fearful of pushing back against what's happening to them.
I guess my thoughts are, if they feel comfortable, the first thing is to address the person directly. So say like, hey, when you call me these names, I know you say you're joking, for example, but like it's hurtful. So like if you can address the person directly, and if you feel safe to do that, that would probably be my first recommendation. The other thing is maybe you talk to other friends and say, hey, just so you know, like this person is saying these things to me. It makes me really uncomfortable, just so that they're aware of the situation too. And if that doesn't go anywhere, then maybe that's not the group of friends you want to be friends with, or maybe that's not the partner you want to be with. If they're saying things that are making you not feel good about yourself, and they're not willing to change when you're bringing that to their attention, as hard as it can be to switch friend groups or whatever it might be, if you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with good people, good friends. And so those would kind of be the recommendations I would have.
Wonderful. Okay, so we'll take two more questions, and we invite all of you to stay if you'd like, and we understand that we're over time. So one person asks, once you recognize that a young person is a victim of harassment, what can be done, and what do you advise? And I invite any of you to feel free to offer insight.
So depending on the setting, where the abuse is happening, if it's happening in schools, please know your Title IX rights. Reach out to a counselor. Or if we're not just talking about online harassment or any type of abuse, because we consider that digital abuse. Again, I can't say it enough, reaching out to the experts and allowing them to really assess and see what's going on, and figure out what the next steps could be. Also, if you feel like you're in physical danger, there's always an opportunity to get a protection order. Of course, if you're under 18, in certain states, you may need your parent to accompany you. If you feel comfortable talking to your parents or coaches or educators, or someone like that reaching out for support, kind of like what Kate said. Because from the online harassment report that we conducted, 50% of the young people said that they reached out to peers and friends for support. But sometimes, like and it goes back to that other question, if you're all friends, that can be a little challenging, right? Yeah, Kate say talking to your friends about it, but what if you're scared that you're gonna lose a friend? We don't know what young people deal with. There's peer pressure, there's bullying, there's so many other intersecting pieces to it, so.
Can I share
Fabulous.
something?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, depending on who you are and what your relationship is, sometimes I think the best you can do is provide the resources that you know, but also just ask them what they need. That's it. Because sometimes people intervene and they will confront the person, and that makes the situation so much worse. And they didn't have a safety plan. And sometimes when you have these over emotional thoughts, especially if it's someone you love or you're friends with and you want it to stop, sometimes your intervening is not going to help. It can make it way worse. So I think just asking the person, what do you need? What can I do? And really just being that supportive voice for them with what they're going through, because ultimately it's going to be their decision what they do, and I can't make that decision for them. And even though if I want them not to be in a situation, it's up to them, and the only thing I can do is support them.
That's
why
wonderful.
Youth council, you see that? How can
All
I
right,
help?
so one last question, and this has come through in a few ways.
Let's
what
direct
can-
it to Rochelle, Gretchen.
I'm sorry.
Let's direct it to Rochelle.
Okay. There are a few questions that have come in about what parents can do to support their children or other safe adults who may have a young loved one in their life who is experiencing abuse. What would you suggest to parents? How can they best be involved? How can they best support those young ones in their lives around this issue? Oh, you're muted again. For some reason, I don't see you as mute, but it looks like it's.
Do whatever you did last time with the speaker, but I also, while she's getting that straight, I want you to know that Love is Respect partnered, the hotline partnered with the Allstate Foundation, and we have a parent guide that has scenarios, discussion ideas, education pieces, so you can go on our website and download that. It's very powerful, not just for parents, but for older adults trying to support young people. You got your voice back, Rochelle?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So the question was, what can adults or parents do to support young people who may be experiencing harassment or abuse? Was that the question?
Mm-hmm.
Goodness, I feel like if I was somebody who needed guidance or help from an adult, I think what I would just really appreciate is an adult who is willing to listen to me and hear me out, not necessarily giving me solutions that I didn't ask for, but yeah, just holding space for me to speak and give me their advice and guidance. And that's what I would say. I think I'd also say, if you're an adult, trying not to pass too much judgment, keeping an open mind, and truly, just listening and only offering advice or solutions when asked, I would say.
We heard that from a young person. Because remember, this whole month, we're about empowerment, we're about engagement, we're about education. Our young people want and crave older adults support, but they don't want to be told what to do so much. They want you to listen and walk through it with them and help them to see. Yes, you can provide support. Someone said it, Zane said it. How can I help you? Right? Kate said it. Talking to your friends, having an open conversation with that person. And based on that conversation and their reaction, you'll know what to do next. You'll know what the next steps are. And like Rochelle said, we just want our parents to be there and support us and, ask how they can support.
Okay. One last question, because someone asked if we could just slip it in, and then I promise we'll end.
Yeah,
But someone really wants to know, what advice would you give our youth when it comes to gaslighting? Gaslighting can be so difficult to recognize, and it is often used to minimize feelings on boundaries.
yeah. Go ahead,
Angela,
I have a few thoughts.
sorry.
Both of y'all, go ahead.
I just wanted
Yeah, I would-
Angela, sorry. I just wanted
Go
Angela
ahead,
to
Zane.
define gaslighting, if people don't know the term.
Yeah, so gaslighting in a general term is making you feel like something didn't happen, making you feel like you're crazy, making you feel like, there's no accountability there. An example could be, you're having a conversation like Kate was talking about. Hey, when you say this and when you make jokes in front of our friends, it makes me feel very uncomfortable and it hurts my feelings. I didn't make a joke. You're tripping. You're crazy. All I said was, and everybody was laughing, things like that. It's a form of gaslight. It can affect your self-esteem. It can make you indecisive. I was a victim of gaslighting. I was so grateful when I made it to Love is Respect and the hotline to hear that term, gaslighting. It validated what I was experiencing because I thought specifically I was crazy. Kate, and then Zane.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful to define. And I know it can be difficult to recognize. So I would go on the flip side of that too, of questions like, do you feel supported in your relationship? Do you feel listened to? Do you feel validated? Kind of thinking about the opposite of what a healthy relationship should look like too, instead of saying, do you feel like you're crazy? You can, kind of go on the more positive side and ask questions to support someone and just ask, do you feel comfortable, listened to, supported? And I think that can be kind of a good way to help assess if it's a healthy relationship as well.
Mm-hmm. Zane?
Actually, I have nothing to say on that. I agree with what Kate said. I just wanted you, Angela, to define it for everyone.
Yeah, and that's good, and dating abuse is a pattern of so many behaviors, but gaslighting, love bombing, all of these terms are used to gain power and control over another partner, right? And it's so important to really understand what you're feeling and why you're feeling it. And if you're not sure, reach out to someone who could actually help you to understand what that is. But I'll drop the gaslighting definition in the chat. Rochelle, did you want to say anything before we end our evening?
No, I feel like everyone has said it all. Truly.
I do too.
All right. Well, everyone, thank you so much. I'm awed by each of you, and this conversation was absolutely incredible. Thank you everyone for attending today. Thank you to our interpreters, both the ASL interpreters and the Spanish interpreters. We will be sending you resources and a link to a recording of this session within about a week. And we'll include some of the materials that you requested during this session. So if you're in need of help, please reach out to us at loveisrespect.org. You can call 1-866-331-9474. You can chat live via loveisrespect.org, or you can text love is to 22522. So again, thank you to everyone. We very much appreciate you, and we hope to hear from you again. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Love is Respect Youth Council. Great job.
Definitely.